Good to go. Awesome. So let's go ahead and see. All right, so why does it matter tracking your food cooked versus uncooked? Well, it can make a big difference in the accuracy of your calories. Now, if you were eating the exact same food every day, the exact same way every day, like raw versus cooked, cold versus reheated again, then no, it doesn't matter if you track your food cooked or uncooked because you're eating the same foods every day. Even if so let's say you're eating the same foods every day and you're in a maintenance phase, you're at maintenance calories. And let's say that you cut down those calories to be in a caloric deficit so that you lose fat. If you're still eating the same foods in the same way, then it doesn't matter if you track your food cooked versus uncooked. But majority of people don't want to eat the same thing every single day for the rest of their life in the exact same way. So in this training, I'm going to be showing you examples of when you should be tracking your food cooked and when you should be tracking your food either raw or before you reheat it. So let's see. So I'm just looking at my notes real quick. So for example, here's one situation in which it could really change the macros and calories of your food. So if, let's say that you have sweet potatoes and you normally cook them by boiling them in water. And then after that, after you store it, you normally like to pull it out from the fridge and then you put it in the air fryer. You slice it, put it in the air fryer to make it all crispy. So if you're doing that, then when you cook your food like that, making it crispy, it essentially removes a lot of the weight and volume from it because the cooking evaporates the water content. So even though it's the exact same food, but one is heavier with water and the other is lighter because the water has been evaporated out of it, they're going to be different weights, but they're going to be the same, pretty much the same amount of calories. So if you're used to tracking your sweet potatoes as boiled, but you air fry it and remove all the water content, but you track it the same way, it's going to register as much lower calories than what it actually is. So what that means is that air fried sweet potatoes are going to be a lot more calories. So let's give some examples of, but even if you aren't air frying your food, it still makes a difference if you are tracking it cooked versus uncooked. So let me give an example. So I like to buy deli meat, specifically Applegate, different subject, but it has 0 harmful gut ingredients, 0 carcinogens. So, deli meat it's already cooked, but it's in a package and it's stored cold in the fridge. So I recently have been tracking that cooked deli meat, ham and pepperoni, after I cooked it in the air fryer. And what that does is it removes a lot of the water content. Some of the fat does leach out of it and settles at the bottom, but the nutrition label on the back of the package is for the deli meat exactly as is, which is before you reheat it again. So I did a comparison of tracking it cold versus tracking it after I cooked it in the air fryer again. And there was a difference of 63 calories. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but keep in mind, this is only a serving size amount that's equivalent to a snack. So if I'm doing, or you are doing anything like this across all of your meals, that 63 calories is going to exponentially increase from there. And so when you think that you're eating less calories, or I'm sorry, like if you think that you're staying within your allotted calories, you're tracking your calories every day, and you think that it's accurate, if you're doing these things, it's actually not accurate, and you're actually eating more calories than what you think. And depending on, what your current goal is for that season, you could be maintaining weight if you're thinking you're in a deficit, or it could be gaining weight if you are trying to be in maintenance phase. So does anybody have any questions regarding that yet?
So if I have, say I have a baked potato, which I do eat a lot of those, it weighs more before I put it in the microwave.
You mean raw versus cooking
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And then it seems like it shrinks in ounces. So is that still the same calories?
Most likely no. It's probably not gonna be as drastic of a difference comparing like uncooked to like putting it in an air fryer where like it evaporates a lot of the water intake. So honestly, just to make it simple, it depends on whatever nutrition label that you're using. So if you are going to the USDA, nutrition facts, and it says a raw potato is this many calories, then you shouldn't be tracking that if you're not eating it raw. So you should instead look for the cooked version. So like, baked potato or potato boiled, and it'll give you the nutrition facts for that. So, but if you're using like say MyFitnessPal and you normally track a boiled potato, but then you air fry it afterwards, go ahead and just track it as the boiled potato, whatever weight that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So in a second, I'll make a clear picture of what types of foods you should choose to cook. You should choose to track cooked, and which types of foods you should choose to track uncooked.
Okay.
Let's see. So basically, actually, you asked a question that led into my next point. So when to track uncooked versus cooked? Like if the food has a food label, and on that food label it specifies whether the nutritional information is just as it is, like for example, crackers. If you get Ritz crackers, it's not going to tell you to cook the crackers. It's going to tell you the nutrition info exactly as it is. Then yeah, go ahead and track it exactly as it lists on the label. Or if the nutrition information, a lot of times if it has a food label, like something like soup or like, raw chicken to like cooked chicken, it'll tell you, the nutrition label will tell you whether it's tracking the food as cooked or raw. So I'm going to give you guys an example real quick. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right, so here's an example of Frontier soups. This is a soup mix that I really like to get at H-E-B, all clean ingredients. And you'll find on the back of the label, the nutrition facts, it has nutrition facts for when it is uncooked, like dry mix. So 2 tablespoons is 50 worth of calories. Versus when you make the mix, 14 grams is 110 calories. So pay attention to, if it has a food label, then just follow the food label. But what this topic is mostly talking about is foods that do not have food labels, or if you are changing the way that it is cooked. Like for example, taking a baked potato and air frying it in the fryer. That is where you're going to see a big difference in calories. Okay, so let me show you another example. So here are apples. So per 100 grams, so that's the weight, raw apples have 52 calories. When you take dried apples, the exact same weight, 100 grams, it has 243 calories. So when it comes to like if you're going to cook vegetables or fruit, go ahead and track them as uncooked if it doesn't have a food label. So for example, let's say that you're making your own dried apples and you put it in a dehydrator. So you have your own dried apples. I'm sorry, you have your own raw apples. You put it in a dehydrator. It would be best to go ahead and calculate the calories based off of the raw weight, unless you're going to go online and find, how many calories are in dried apples. But again, that's going to vary depending on how much you dry it. Like for example, like some dried fruit is really chewy. Some dried fruit is really crispy. And that is based off of like how much you cook it. So to be safe in general, it's best to follow the raw weight and track that. Unless you're going to go online and find exactly what, dried apples calories are, and then you would track it as that based off of the weight. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, don't see any questions. Awesome. So what about when we covered like fruits and vegetables? Generally, it's best to track it when it is uncooked. What about meats? Should you be tracking it cooked or uncooked? Well, how are you going to eat it? Are you going to eat it raw? Well, I don't recommend that. So what you should do when it comes to meat is track it after it has been cooked once. So let's say you bake chicken and it's done. You eat it for dinner, and then that night you put it in the fridge, and the next day you pull that out of the fridge and you're like, I'm going to eat this again. You would want to track it while it is cold from the fridge before you reheat it again. So while it's cold, go ahead and weigh it and then track that as your calories. You wouldn't want to pull it out of the fridge, put it in the air fryer or microwave, whatever, and then track it after that, because of all the heat that's being produced. It is evaporating out some of the water. Some of the fat is being extracted out of it. And so it's going to make it weigh less. And if it weighs less, it's going to register as less calories in MyFitnessPal, but it's not as accurate. So to be clear, if it's meat, track it after you've cooked it once, but don't track it after you reheat it again. Always track it after it has been cooked once. And to recap, veggies should be tracked uncooked unless you have a specific label for like dried squash or dried fruit. Fruit should be tracked uncooked. Now, what about like grains? So rice, what about something like that? Again, if you can't eat it raw, then you should track it after it has been cooked once. If you can eat it raw, like fruits and veggies, you should track it as uncooked. So rice, track it after you've cooked it, but before you reheat it again. So same example, the chicken. Let's say you cook rice today, you eat it for dinner, you put it in the fridge, and then the next day you are going to eat that rice again. While it's still cold, go ahead and track it as cold, not after you heat it again. Same thing for bread. Like if you're wanting to make toast, go ahead and weigh it as uncooked or untoasted rather than weighing it after you have toasted it, because again, that heat is evaporating some of that water and making it weigh less. But just because it's weighing less doesn't mean it's less calories. So to summarize everything all together, if the food is required to be cooked in order to eat it, like raw chicken, things like that, then you should track it as cooked after the first time you have cooked it before you reheat it again. But if it is not required to cook to eat it, then track it as cold or raw before cooking it or reheating it. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what have you guys been doing personally in terms of tracking food?
I've been doing like baked potatoes. At first, I started doing them before I cooked them, and then I did it after I cooked them. But meats, I always do after we cook it. Because I always trim off a lot of the fats, and there's usually not as much left.
Yeah. So you're saying you normally track meat as after you reheat it again?
After it's cooked the one time.
Okay, so if it's like leftovers, you track it while it's cold still?
I usually just use what I used the day before. You know what I mean? Because it'll be like a 6-ounce piece, and I'll eat 3 ounces one day and then 3 ounces the next.
Oh, I see. Okay. But then, so are you tracking 6 ounces in your MyFitnessPal though for each day, but only eating 3?
No. If the steak is, say, at 6 ounces and I only eat 3, I'll do 3 ounces one day and 3 ounces the next day.
Okay, but so you're saying you already know the weight of that leftover piece?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so in that case, you're still tracking food as, meats as after you've cooked it once. So while it's still cold if it's leftovers.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have either one of you experienced, or do either one of you like use an air fryer or anything like that? Or do you like crispy food?
We use it for French fries.
Okay. Nice.
Which is really good.
So like, are they like frozen French fries, or are they like French fries that you have like cut and prepared yourself?
Usually frozen.
Okay. Then depending on what the food label says, if it says these calories are based off of them being reheated, like cooked in the oven, or if it just says nothing, then I would go according to that. So if it says nothing, I would probably track it. Actually, I would track it as still frozen. But then it's kind of hard because then, yeah, that would be a little bit more difficult because you're having to, unless you, so if you're doing it in small quantities, like you just grab some frozen French fries, you weigh it, and then you put it in the air fryer, then that would work. But if you're doing it by mass, like heating up frozen French fries for everybody, then that would skew it a little bit. But I would say, you know, just be careful of like if you like to cook your food like really thoroughly, or like really crispy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'll try to, on most of the packages, it has like how many pieces you can have. So I'll just count out that many pieces and go from the label that's on the package.
That can be appropriate, but most times when labels say per slice or per quantity, it also says how much that one slice is or that one roll is, how much it weighs. Like it might say, a slice of bread is 28 grams. But if you actually pull out a slice of bread from the package, different pieces of bread are actually going to be heavier and lighter than others. So if you're wanting more accuracy in the food that you're actually eating, it's always best to weigh everything. Don't just go off of quantity. And to be even more accurate when it comes to weighing your food, you should weigh it in grams versus ounces. The reason why, so there are 28 grams in 1 ounce. So let's say you have 1 ounce of chicken, or it says 1 ounce. But it's actually like, 26 grams. If you're having multiple 1 ounces of chicken throughout the day, there's going to be a pretty big difference in calories. So for more precision, track your food by weighing it and weigh your food in grams.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Claiborne?
Yep, I was weighing in grams. I usually just weigh everything raw.
Awesome.
Yeah, with my fish raw, but that's just because I put a bunch of seasonings and stuff on it. I feel like that replaces most of the stuff I lose.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to make things really simple, you could just default to weighing everything raw. The only time that
Yeah,
becomes a
that's what I do.
problem, yeah, the only time that becomes a problem is if you like to have leftovers, then obviously you can't weigh it raw anymore. So this is,
Usually if I open a package, I'll eat the whole thing. So
oh dang. But yeah, so like when you can't weigh things raw, just follow these guidelines that I taught here. So
the
Kevin
exception
asked,
being chicken and beef, I'll weigh after I cook it.
okay,
But
yeah. And the key thing there is to track it after it has been cooked once, not, reheating it a second time.
yeah.
Cool. So Kevin asked, so preparing your own food and snacks is best. That's a different topic. That's like, eating out versus eating at home is a completely different topic. So, but in general, like to just quickly touch on it, there is going to be more accuracy if you are preparing your own food at home, or you buy pre-packaged foods from the grocery store. Although even with that, like pre-packaged food labels, according to the USDA food laws, they are permitted to be as high as 20% inaccurate. So so for a snack of a small bag of chips, they might say it is 100 calories, when in actuality it's 120 calories. Yeah. So, but I would say, obviously that's better than going out to eat where you truly have no idea what food they used, what ingredients they used, and therefore have to basically estimate what the calories are.
Yeah, a
So,
lot of times
Kev,
that variability comes from they have to take averages. That's how they establish all that. So
yeah,
the reason why there's such a big gap for 20% is because like no two ears of corn grow the same way. So
yeah.
it covers them legally for that.
I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is they know that like diet is such a big deal in America that they want to make the food seem more appealing calorically than it actually is. But yeah, it's definitely the factor that you mentioned as well. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions?
No.
Awesome. Any questions on any other topic?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you guys for joining. So because you guys joined, I give a free prize for every Zoom call that you attend. That means being on the Zoom call, not just the live on Facebook. So let's go ahead and do the spinny wheel thing and see which one of you guys wins. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see, this was from last time. Okay, we got Tanya and Claiborne. All right, who's gonna win?
50-50 chance.
Yeah. Woohoo! Claiborne.
Woo!
Awesome. So I'll message you, see what kind of gift you want. Whether it's Starbucks, Amazon card, whatever. I'm open to options. So I'll message you and talk to you about that.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. We do a live training every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Free prizes along if you attend the Zoom. So stay tuned for next week. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.